Welcome to the Good White Folks Podcast, your trusted source for counter-racism news and analysis. Powered by Planetary Chess and cutting-edge AI, we deliver sharp insights into the state of white supremacy to keep you informed and empowered.
All right, get ready, because we're diving into some really groundbreaking stuff today.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about a potential key to understanding the psychology behind racism, like at its core.
Deep-rooted racism.
Exactly. And imagine like a theory so radical, so ahead of its time,
Right.
that it's been pretty much ignored by like mainstream thought.
Oh, yeah.
But then imagine this same theory finding like validation from the very group that it aims to explain.
It's wild.
That's exactly what we're looking at today.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The work of Dr. Francis Cress Welsing,
Okay.
a brilliant psychiatrist who, back in the late 20th century,
Okay.
developed the Cress theory of color confrontation.
This theory has been kind of simmering under the surface for decades.
For sure, for sure.
But it hasn't really like hit the mainstream conversation,
Right.
which I think is pretty interesting in itself.
Oh, it's fascinating. And it makes you think, like, are we missing something here?
Yeah.
You know, are we approaching this topic the wrong way? Because Welsing's theory says that white supremacy,
Okay.
it's not just about, historical power dynamics or like socioeconomic inequality.
Yeah.
She goes deeper.
Okay.
She's suggesting that it's driven by like a deep subconscious fear, a fear of what she calls genetic annihilation.
Whoa. Genetic annihilation.
Yeah.
That's intense.
It is. It's heavy stuff.
Break that down for us. What exactly did she mean by that?
So think of it like a primal anxiety, something
Like
that's
that.
operating like beneath the surface
Yeah.
in the white collective psyche.
Huh.
It's this fear of being outnumbered, outbred,
Oh, yeah.
and ultimately losing their dominant position globally.
Yeah.
And this fear, according to Welsing,
Yeah.
it shows up as a need to control and dominate people of color.
Wow.
It's a way to maintain white racial purity.
So it's like this fear lurking in the background is actually like
Yeah.
shaping the behaviors and systems we see in the world.
Exactly, shaping the world we live in.
Wow. And this is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
We have this groundbreaking theory developed by a black scholar,
Right.
largely ignored by the mainstream,
Yeah.
and then enters Janga Busaja.
Okay.
His research paper connecting Welsing's theory to modern white supremacist ideology.
Wow, so there's actual research connecting Welsing's theory.
Yes.
Which some might say is a little out there
Right.
to what's happening today.
It's happening right now.
That's pretty amazing.
It is. In Busaja's work,
Yeah.
it exposes a potential blind spot
Okay.
in mainstream discussions about racism.
Mm.
He focuses on the Great Replacement theory,
Okay.
this white supremacist ideology that claims that white populations are being intentionally replaced
Oh,
by non-white immigrants.
okay.
It suggests that mass migration and declining birth rates
Okay.
are threatening the very existence of white people.
Heavy stuff.
Yeah, that's disturbing.
It is.
And it sounds eerily similar to what Dr. Welsing was talking about decades ago with genetic annihilation.
Right. It's almost the same thing, but with different language.
It's a striking parallel, isn't it?
It is. It's a striking parallel.
So this Great Replacement theory, while, using different words, basically boils down to the same anxieties about
Yeah.
white extinction and losing white dominance.
It's like they're unintentionally confirming Welsing's analysis.
It's almost too perfect of a connection to be just a coincidence.
Right.
Why hasn't this research, this connection, been given more attention?
Well, that's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
Busaja himself and many others see this as evidence
Okay.
of a deliberate effort to suppress certain narratives.
Really?
There's belief that the mainstream media and academic institutions,
Right.
they shy away from scholarship like Welsing's and Busaja's
Hmm.
because it exposes the psychological roots of white supremacy
Too directly.
in a way that makes people uncomfortable.
So there's like a conspiracy of silence happening.
Potentially.
A deliberate attempt to avoid confronting these uncomfortable truths
Yes.
about
Yes.
like the very foundation of racism.
It's a theory that's worth considering
Absolutely.
because if we only focus on the surface level,
Right.
we might be missing a crucial piece of the puzzle.
Right.
And without acknowledging these deep-seated fears, can we really dismantle these systems that keep racial inequality going.
That raises so many questions about, like, whose voices are amplified,
For sure.
whose are silenced, and why.
Absolutely.
It's crucial that we bring these ideas to light.
Yes.
And explore them thoughtfully. So
Let's do it.
let's delve deeper into this great replacement theory. Where did it originate?
Okay.
How is it spreading?
All right.
What are the real-world consequences?
Let's get into it.
Let's go.
Yeah. So the term Great Replacement, it was actually coined by this French philosopher named Renaud Camus. But, the ideas behind it, they've been floating around in white nationalist circles for way longer.
Right. It's not just like hidden on some obscure website anymore.
No.
We're seeing it like creep into, certain media outlets and even political rhetoric.
Exactly. And that's what's really concerning. This normalization of this ideology can have devastating consequences.
Harsh, right.
Like, we can see its real-world impact in the rise of racially motivated violence.
You're talking about like the mass shootings in El Paso, Christchurch, Pittsburgh, Poway, Buffalo.
Exactly.
These tragedies driven by this twisted ideology.
Yeah, each of those shooters, they believed that they were defending the white race.
Wow.
Against this perceived threat of replacement.
Yes.
Their manifestos were like eerily similar, echoing the same Great Replacement rhetoric, the same anxieties about white extinction and the need to preserve white dominance.
It's a scary reminder of how powerful these ideas can be.
Yeah.
How they can actually drive people to commit these horrific acts of violence.
Yeah. And it's not just these high-profile mass shootings,
Right.
There's a broader, more insidious trend of racially motivated violence happening every day.
Yeah, that's true.
Look at the statistics on police brutality against Black Americans.
It's heartbreaking.
It is. Statista.com reports that Black Americans are tragically overrepresented in fatal police shootings at a rate way higher than any other ethnicity.
And those numbers are probably just a fraction of the reality.
Absolutely.
The FBI's Crime Data Explorer shows a consistent and alarming increase in hate crimes overall, and a disproportionate number targeting Black people.
Yeah, this points to a larger, deeply troubling pattern. It's like this Great Replacement ideology is fueling a climate of fear and hatred.
Yeah.
That permeates our society, and it manifests in different ways.
So how do we even begin to address this if these ideas are like seeping into the mainstream and influencing not just individual acts of violence, but also potentially shaping policies and systems? Where do we go from here?
That's the question, isn't it? And it requires a multifaceted approach.
Okay.
We can't just focus on the overt acts of racism. We need to understand how these ideas take root and spread, how they influence individuals, often in subtle but dangerous ways.
Right.
And this brings us back to Welsing's theory.
You mean how this Great Replacement theory actually validates her ideas?
Exactly.
About the subconscious fear of genetic annihilation?
Right. By understanding that deep-seated psychological dimension, we can start to develop strategies that go beyond just calling out racist acts.
Yeah.
We need to address the underlying fears and anxieties that fuel them.
So it's about understanding the root causes.
Yes.
The deep-seated fears driving this ideology rather than just reacting to its outward manifestations.
Precisely. And this requires a shift in perspective. We need to be aware of how these extremist ideas can influence individuals who may already be struggling with mental health issues, potentially leading to tragic outcomes.
It's like a perfect storm, isn't it? You have these deep-seated anxieties about race and identity, fueled by extremist rhetoric and amplified by social media.
Exactly.
And then you have individuals who are particularly vulnerable to these messages because of their mental state.
Yeah, it creates a dangerous and volatile mix.
It really does.
And if we're not careful, we risk overlooking the subtle ways in which these ideologies manifest.
Right.
It's not always as blatant as a hate crime or a mass shooting.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's about recognizing the subtle cues, the underlying biases that inform everyday actions and decisions.
So recognizing those subtle influences is a crucial part of addressing the problem.
Absolutely. It's about understanding how these ideologies subtly shape perspectives.
Okay.
Even in individuals who might not identify as overtly racist, it's about seeing the forest for the trees, recognizing the broader patterns at play.
So it sounds like we need a more nuanced approach if we're really going to try and dismantle these harmful ideologies like this Great Replacement theory.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's about understanding the root causes, those deep-seated anxieties and fears that really fuel this kind of thinking. And this kind of brings us back to Welsing's work,
Yeah.
It offers a framework for understanding that psychological dimension of racism.
Yeah, that often gets overlooked.
It does.
We tend to just focus on like the historical and socioeconomic factors.
Right, exactly.
But we need to dig deeper.
Well, we need to understand those primal fears and anxieties
Yeah.
that fuel these harmful ideologies.
So it's about challenging those narratives of fear and replacement with something more positive, something more human.
Exactly. It's about fostering empathy and understanding.
Yeah.
Recognizing that we're all interconnected.
We're all in this together, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's a daunting task, but it feels like we're finally starting to have these tough conversations.
Yeah, I agree. It feels like we're starting to acknowledge the complexity of this issue and the need for a more nuanced approach.
Absolutely. So hopefully, by understanding these psychological roots of racism, we can start to heal those deep-seated wounds.
Right.
And create a more just and equitable society for everyone.
That's the goal. And it starts by acknowledging the validity of work like Welsing's and Bisage's, work that challenges conventional thinking and shines a light on some uncomfortable truths
For sure.
about ourselves and our society.
Yeah, this has been a really heavy but incredibly important deep dive today.
Yes.
We explored the Cress theory of color confrontation, the great replacement theory, the alarming rise of all this racially motivated violence.
Right.
And we even touched on the potential silencing of scholarship that challenges mainstream narratives.
Yeah, it's a lot to process.
It is.
And we encourage you to explore these ideas further. Read Dr. Welsing's work, learn about the history of white supremacy, and engage in these critical conversations about race and racism.
Right.
But do it with an open mind and an open heart.
As you grapple with all these complex issues, we'll leave you with this final thought-provoking question.
Okay.
If Welsing's theory is correct, what does that mean for how we approach anti-racism work?
Right.
Do we need to shift our strategies?
Yeah.
Do we need to put more emphasis on understanding and addressing these deep-seated psychological fears?
It's a question worth thinking about, a question that might lead us to some new and more effective ways of dismantling these systems of oppression and creating a world where everyone can truly thrive.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
See you later.
Thank you for tuning in to the Good White Folks podcast. Be sure to visit us at planetarychess.org to explore more content and subscribe to our monthly newsletter. For those who want to stay ahead, join our paid tier for just $10 a month and receive daily State of White Supremacy alerts Monday through Friday. Stay informed, stay empowered, and let's dismantle together.